So this is what makes the forecast tricky, which would be great for the roads. But this is why it's so hard to predict the impacts of the events.
If you were to look at a particular city, which city do you think may take it the worst? I look at a place like Nashville, where they could have ice and then go over to snow. But I also look at places to the north where they could get heavy snow and high winds. So two different elements of this storm.
Absolutely. I have two areas that I'm looking at. Kentucky, Paducah, Kentucky, Louisville. We could have more than a quarter inch of ice in some of these areas. They're almost right in the bullseye of that potential. So that could get quite messy. But Erie, Pennsylvania, they're at 133 inches of snowfall this year. And we could be seeing 10 to 12 inches on top of that from this storm. And this is a unique track that the storm is taking. Their biggest events are typically lake effect, but we're seeing a synoptic system move up into the area and drop this narrow swath of very heavy snow. So this is a lot. And this is actually contributing to a very potent flood threat in many of these areas across the Northeast because these temperatures are so warm today, tomorrow, Saturday, that we could see some melting snow and some flooding.
Yeah, we were going to say, I think a lot of the Northeast goes, hey, good, we got grace and we're going to miss out on this one. But because of the rain, the mild temperatures that we have in these areas that are snowless, we could actually have big problems.
Yeah, big. So you're not quite out of the threat zone if you want to think about it like that.
Lots of threats to come with this
Dr. Navarro, thank you.
Northeast, Dr. Navarro, we've got a lot of precip types possible. Anything from rain to wintry mix, that sleet, freezing rain, and then, of course, snow.
Yeah, it's all threats, all things included, every type of winter weather and precipitation type. We're probably going to get it at some point here across portions of the southeast just because of how this system is tapping into this warm, very moist air, and it's a very potent stream. The precipitable water values, the available moisture is quite high with this system right now. Just like Mike was showing you here, look at this corridor of very narrow but freezing rain and ice potential here all the way from, say, Memphis, Tennessee, maybe the northwest corner of Mississippi through Indianapolis, maybe off towards Cleveland, and it continues to push east. So Ohio, you could be looking at all precipitation types tomorrow at some point as we head from the morning into the afternoon, and then that snow comes in very quickly right behind it. We could be seeing potentially 5 to 8 inches of snow here in some areas of Ohio, and then up towards the Great Lakes region or downwind of Lake Erie and Lake Ontario. It could be quite high in some of these areas. So it's a very quick shot, but a very high potential here of ice and freezing rain. This could make travel miserable in a lot of these areas, but not more than that. It could be extremely dangerous and life-threatening. So please take this very seriously.
And it's all going to depend on the profile, so to speak, of the atmosphere.
Yes, yeah. So how the atmosphere looks, not only at the surface, but all the way throughout the atmosphere really matters, especially when it comes to wintry precipitation types. So we can pull this out and show you a cross-section of the atmosphere, say across portions of the south or the southeast as we head into the later part of this week. So right now the atmosphere is very warm. You can see here we're above freezing all the way from the surface to the upper levels of the atmosphere. But we have an Arctic front that's going to be coming down and absolutely crashing through these areas. So not only at the surface, but through the upper levels, we're going to be seeing that air come way down, that temperatures come way down towards below freezing. So now at the surface here, notice, again, we're near 20 degrees, but right up above that, we're going to have a warm front. So warmer air that's going to be mixing in here with that precipitation. That air, that precipitation that falls through here is going to be liquid, but then when it encounters these freezing temperatures near the surface, it will freeze on contact, and this will create a disaster on the roads here because we could see black ice through a lot of areas, making travel quite treacherous. Now, there's a very good potential that that warm air might not be as robust as some of the models are suggesting. The air might be a little bit colder through a deeper layer throughout the atmosphere. If that happens, that precipitation will have a chance to freeze a little bit more, and we will see sleet coming down instead of freezing rain. If you're on the road, that's actually a really good thing because we're not going to be seeing that potential for black ice as high under this type of scenario. This is still messy, this is still uncomfortable, but it's definitely better than the freezing rain. And again, it all matters with how much warm air we really do get at the upper levels, guys. Mike and Alex back.
For some of you, ice jams could be a problem.
Yeah.
Ice jams don't typically become an issue until the spring thaw, but this is a little unusual event where we had a really cold spell, a lot of snow, now an incredibly warm spell with rain, which isn't typical for January.
Yeah, that's right. Another way to show just how unique and strange this storm really is, especially at this time of the year, because we shouldn't be seeing this until April or May. But with these warm temperatures coming in, we run into the issue of melting ice on the rivers. So it has been so cold across portions of the Northeast for about 2 to 3 weeks. So a lot of these rivers have really changed over to ice. They've frozen over. It hasn't hasn't been much of an issue, but now with that potential of the record warmth coming into play, a lot of this ice is going to begin to melt and melt very quickly. This is going to create some issues downstream, let's say where things become a little bit more narrow. Notice how this river here becomes a little bit more narrow. You've got this floating ice, but then you reach a point like a bridge or, maybe some more industrial area, things start to pile up. So you run into a traffic jam of ice cubes here, big ice cubes. And what happens is then you get this rushing water coming in, all that melts that's coming down from the snowpack, the melting ice, things come in and they cannot penetrate through this ice jam. So, think traffic jams with cars. We've got giant ice cubes, and in all of these houses here that maybe are on the riverbanks, it doesn't even have to be right along the river. It could be well outside of it, because this could be a lot of water, and it can create a huge threat here of flooding on both sides of the river until we're able to clear out this jam of ice cubes.
Because basically you're just creating, in essence, a dam right there of ice, and everything goes out of its banks.
Yeah, and there are a lot of areas here, a wide range that could be facing this threat. This, again, can happen anywhere as long as it's cold enough to freeze these rivers. But in the Northeast, with all the snow and the cold temperatures we've got, this is going to be a big issue across New England.
Here comes the warm temperatures. Here comes the rain. This is going to loosen everything up.
Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully we don't see this verifying, Alex, quite like this, because this can be really, really devastating for a lot of communities near the rivers.
Right. We see these problems, as we go through the winter months. You get that snow, that ice buildup. But if you get that mild thaw come too quick or too fast, or too early, you can have the problems.